2022, and we got unanimous approval from our council to be able to, they approved that road safety action plan. It's online if you ever want to look at that, phoenix.gov/road safety. You can find it directly there. You can see our plan. There's 41 strategies within there about how to make our streets safer. But with that adoption, they did also allocate $10 million annually. So we're looking to be able to spend that on road projects, a lot of intersection rebuilds, modernizations of traffic signals, also roadway corridors that might be significant there. When we're working on, let me just click through here just so we can get to this. So when we're looking at the road safety issues in the city of Phoenix, we're using it's data intensive. So we've done a deep dive on our roadway safety issues, our collisions, our serious injuries, our fatalities, and we've mapped those out there. So we've developed a high injury network. So we know where we have a higher incidence of roadway fatalities. And so we're using that in that data to be able to target where we put improvements. We want to make, this is not a peanut butter approach across the entire city. It is specifically targeted on those areas where we have those highest incidents. Because if we're going to be adopting what we have as a Vision Zero adoption that was happened by our council as well, that to drive those numbers down to zero, we have to be able to focus in the areas where we have the greatest need. So in order to help us to oversee and provide oversight and guidance to what we're doing, we have actually 3 board committees and groups that we're working on. 2 of them are staff level, which is the Road Safety Action Plan and Implementation Team working up from the bottom, the Executive Task Force. Those are both staff level groups, and then you have an executive level group within the city who are kind of providing oversight and guidance through that. But we also have an 11-member Citizens Advisory Committee who's going to help guide, and we're going to be reporting back to throughout our road safety implementation process. But yeah, you can see some of the numbers that we have here, that why it's such a concern for us and why it's such a big focus for us here at the city of Phoenix. This next slide, it tells a little bit about what we've also been focusing in on. You can't just think about streets in just the traditional way. A lot of it is about, we've been focused in on active transportation. And one of the big areas here is to be able to help address some of that last mile, first mile concerns. We had a scooter program for a couple of years where it was a pilot program in the downtown area. That was very successful, but we had a lot of demand for people wanting to, have pedal bikes, e-bikes, other options, but also an expanded operational area. And so you can see the yellow area up here at the top is where we actually had our scooter program focused for the first couple of years. And back in January, or just back last month, we implemented and activated our new shared more micromobility program, which is the blue area here. An expanded area, not as large as we would have liked to, but we're working on that. But that now blue area also includes, like I said, instead of just scooters, it's also e-bikes and pedal bikes. And we have 2 vendors, Spin and Lime, that were selected to be able to operate in these areas and be able to do that for our residents. So the one unique thing is, if you know anything about the scooter program, we had a corral system in the yellow area when we were doing that scooter program. We still have a corral system within that yellow area, but as we've expanded the boundaries, we know we can't replicate corral systems across that much larger area. So we actually have a lock-to technology. So that's something we're working through and providing education to the users of these devices to make sure they know how to park them. So you'll see them a lot more in a lot of other areas of the city, but the part there we want to make sure is it's not blocking ADA access to our sidewalks or causing blight and those kind of things. But we do have interest from a lot of the council members to be able to expand beyond this area over to Maryvale, up to the Metro Center area. So there is, and along the light rail corridor. So we expect that this is something that's probably going to be growing in the next 6 to 12 months beyond this area. But we'll see how this goes. But yeah, so it's 2 to 35 square miles is what we had through this program. And like I said, the whole idea was to make sure we're connecting into the future light rail system here. And I mentioned we had a pretty competitive process to be able to select vendors. And the reason why we were looking at multiple vendors, if you remember the bike program we had initially, the grid bike system, that was with one vendor. And so it was a little bit of a put all your eggs in one basket. And that didn't quite work out when that vendor was not able to perform. And so we ended up being without a program for a while. We wanted to have multiple vendors, but we also wanted to have, we didn't know how many vendors we're going to need because we were concerned that the pedal bikes were going to be something that was going to be difficult to have people provide. So we want to have potentially more vendors, but both vendors, Lime and Spin, are committed to provide all three of those types of technology. So some more about that. Again, we launched on January 20th. It replaced the scooter program. We have a cap of 3,000 vehicles in that operating area. The other thing, interesting thing is these both companies also have committed to provide adaptive vehicles for people with mobility challenges. So that's interesting. We're going to see how that goes and see how well that gets used as well. But we wanted to provide that opportunity as well. All right, another interesting thing when you get involved and be the director of the street transportation department, you're like, oh, all I'm going to be concerned about is traffic signals, asphalt, concrete, sidewalks, landscaping, that kind of street lights. No, you got to worry about digital kiosks too, which you're like, why is that? Well, because they're in the right of way and I'm responsible for the right of way. So the digital kiosk is something in the downtown area that was focused in on to be able to provide more access and information to our visitors in the downtown area and also in the residents in the downtown area. It's really meant to enhance the pedestrian experience. So it has information about events going on in the downtown area, services that are down there, and these are getting ready to go live. I'll click through here. So they are going to have Wi-Fi with these. There's 20 of them. They're initially going to be installed in the downtown area. And like I said, it's going to be to enhance the pedestrian experience. There will be advertising on them, which is one of the big complicating factors of this about advertising in the public right of way. So we have to manage through there. So they will have other things, and there'll be an app attached to this too. If you're not at a kiosk, you have an app that can access the same information. But we're kind of experimenting with this to see how well it's received, how well it's used. We didn't know. It was brought to us. We're like, well, let's figure out how we can make this work. So we did a competitive process for this as well. So the ACEC Smart City is the vendor who was selected. They will actually be working to install these. We were initially hoping to have them installed by the time Super Bowl rolled around. That didn't happen. So we anticipate probably by June, all 20 of them will be installed and operational. So something you'll be interacting potentially in the downtown area and see around there. Now moving to some of the projects and things like that we've been working on. As many of you are very familiar with the Grand Canalscape projects that we did phase 1 and phase 2. We were able to open those and get those done and completed right before the pandemic. Well, the last couple of years, we haven't been stagnant in this area. We've actually been working on a couple new Canalscape projects. One, Grand Canalscape phase 3. The other one, Western Canalscape. So Grand Canalscape phase 3 is actually focused in the Maryville area. So it runs 75th Avenue to 47th Avenue along the canal there. So if you're doing the mapping in your head there, that leaves us about 45th all the way to I-17, and crossing the I-17 would be the only barrier to be able to make Grand Canalscape across the entire city of Phoenix complete for a multi-use path. Now, if you're familiar with these as well, we do safe crossings at all of these. So we have either signalized crossings at those locations to make sure people feel comfortable and safe getting across there, but it's a way to be able to interact with and have recreation and transportation corridor options throughout the city without having to be on our City of Phoenix streets. So, and then the Western Canalscape project, if you know, we've got Arizona Canal, we've got Grand Canal, we've got Highline Canal, and the Western Canal. And those are the major canals that go through here that are managed and controlled by SRP. And so we're working on those slowly using SRP aesthetics program funds to be able to fund these projects. And we've got a lot of support that way. So the Western Canal one will actually be connecting 4th Avenue, which is a little west of the end of the light rail line at South Central, going over to 24th Street, which is where South Mountain Community College is. So that is a first segment there. We anticipate to continue to use aesthetics program monies to be able to continue to expand either on Highline or Western or complete out the Grand Canal and maybe start even make a foray into Arizona Canal as well. We really want to make sure we take advantage of this to be able to create these safe transportation corridors through there as well. One thing you might not realize as well, I mean, if anybody here actually used the Grand Canal for recreation? So one thing that happened after we opened this right before the pandemic, it was a great opportunity during the pandemic for people to social distance and be able to use recreational amenities like that without, in a safe way. And so we had a big explosion of people using that. But then at the same time, we saw a big explosion of homeless encampments showing up on the canals. And then if you may not know anything about whatever you know about the canal system, SRP manages them on behalf of the Bureau of Reclamation. The Bureau of Reclamation actually had a rule in place that said you allows camping on Bureau of Reclamation lands for up to 14, 15 days in a 30-day period. Well, who's going to be able to patrol that? Like, well, have you been here for 14 days or 16 days to do this? Or if you just break down your camp, set up, 100 yards down the line, now you're starting back over with day one. So we worked very, very tirelessly with both Bureau of Reclamation and SRP. And we were very successful in doing that. We didn't think it was going to get done as quick as it did, but once we saw Bureau of Reclamation saw what was happening on the canals, and they saw, urban canal setting is not the place for doing encampments. So we actually had a special rule that was put in place by the Bureau of Reclamation that outlawed camping on the canals. So now you have a great recreational amenity that people, and it's not just about, people have a lot of different feelings about how to deal with the unsheltered population out there. But if you heard some of the stories of what people were being exposed to and interactions they had with some of the people that were camping on the canal, you wouldn't want to take your kids or even, you had to be a little bit concerned about your safety out there. So the patrolling that SRP does out there, and now it's illegal to be able to be camping on there, has really reduced those encampments out there. So that's the whole point, is to be able to make sure we expended millions of dollars into this amenity, and we want to make sure people feel comfortable and safe using it. So both these projects are in the final design phase, and they both kind of involve the same kind of improvements: landscaping, lighting, increased canal pathway through there, but also the safe crossings across our streets as well. So both of these are going to be getting ready to move to construction later this year. And then next thing I'm going to be looking at is what's our next segment of the canal to begin design work on it. So that will be an opportunity coming up here as well. So cool pavement. You probably have heard a little bit about the cool pavement program that we have at the city of Phoenix. So just things that you might want to hear. This is a map we have up online that shows all the different cool pavement locations that we've done through here. And we've been working with ASU on testing these cool pavement locations. If you've seen any of the results, the preliminary reports that were put out, we have a 10 to 12 degree difference in the surface temperatures of pavement in those areas where we have placed that pavement treatment. And that's compared to a traditional treatment out there. We also have seen about a reduction in the air temperature above there, which is really, what people feel as well. It's not a huge amount, but a half degree difference there is important. But one of the things I'm most concerned about, because it's not just about the environmental benefits, I wanted to kind of see also the maintenance benefits of this. And what we found is about a 6 degree difference in the pavement temperature in the pavement section, because we use this pavement treatment. So you all know what happens when the heat and the sun and the UV radiation and on our asphalt, it breaks that down. And so this is kind of acting like a sunscreen to our pavement, keeping it cooler. And so I'm interested to see what the life of our pavement, we haven't obviously had the pavement treatment down longer than a couple of years, but we're excited to see how long the pavement treatment actually lasts when we have to recoat it. We're estimating, rather than a typical about 3 years for a typical seal coat, this may last up to 7 or 8 years. And then hopefully that will also increase the life of the pavement that's underneath the seal coat, or the pavement treatment as well. So we started out with a pilot program. We took away the pilot. We added another phase to it. So we did phase 2 last spring. Phase 3 will be coming up this April through June timeframe, as we'll be applying. But we actually had council approve an additional 2 locations. So we'll be doing 11 neighborhoods. So all that together will be putting us up to about 18 million square feet, or 120 miles of pavement. And these are mainly focused on our residential street. There's 4,000 miles of residential streets, if you want to do the math on that one. So this is something we're going to continue to do and look for opportunities. And this will put us as the largest cool pavement program in the entire United States. We keep on going back and forth between us and LA. But every year we end up passing them with what we do on an annual basis. You might have heard in the news, just around a little after Christmas time, we had a little bit of an issue with one of our neighborhoods with cool pavement. It was over here in the Fairview Place neighborhood. And what happened there, just so you know, we used a different product because we were trying out different products to see which ones work, and it didn't work really well. So we were monitoring, evaluating, and then we decided to put our traditional product that we worked everywhere else we put on here. We put it on top of there. The 2 products didn't match very well together. We thought there was a little bit more similar properties to them. It wouldn't have an issue. And so with that combined with some rain that happened around that same time, it just pulverized it and it came off. So we got some special equipment out there, removed it all. And now we're working with that community to see if they want to go back with a traditional seal coat, black seal coat, or if they want to go to cool pavement. So there's a survey open for the residents to be able to see which one they'd like to go with. We want to let them know, hey, we're going to get it right. We're sorry for the inconvenience, that kind of thing. So, but that's the only hiccup we've had in the cool pavement program so far. So if you want more information, phoenix.gov/streets/cool pavement for more information about that program. We did get some awards on this, just some information we have up online about the program and what it looks like. And we actually did change the color. So this is the original color we ended up doing in the first phase. But we also saw that people were, it cured to look like, you know, like concrete, like sidewalk. It's very similar to the look of the sidewalk. Didn't have as much glare, but we saw, can we do some things with reducing that aspect of it so it's a little bit darker? So the company we're working with actually has a Phoenix, what we now called a Phoenix gray color, and we used it in phase 2, and that's what we're using for phase 3 as well. A little darker in color, looks more like a little bit more of like a weathered asphalt at the end of the day, or maybe between a weathered asphalt and a weathered regular concrete, but it has the same reflectives or better reflected characteristics, so it performs just as well as the original product. So upcoming federal projects. So we want to talk a little bit about some work that's coming up here. Coming on the reins, and I'm sorry that this, I'll provide we'll make sure we get the PowerPoint out so that if you can't see it from where you're at right now. So a couple of things that we've got going on. We've been very successful lately in getting some federal projects and federal assistance, because that does help us do more with what our projects we got. We've got a CRISI grant, which is federal grant focused on railroads safety, 19th Avenue in McDowell and 43rd Avenue in Camelback. So those will be design opportunities that we'll be putting out for anybody out there who's interested. We also have the RAISE grant, a $25 million grant that's focused in on a 3rd Street pedestrian bridge over the Rio Salado, as well as pathway improvements along the Rio Salado and on the south side of the banks of the Rio Salado, which will include lighting, solar lighting in there as well. So that will actually be coming out also for design. We're just working with Federal Highway Administration right now on the grant agreement. Once we get that taken care of, then we'll move forward the design aspect of that project. We do have a small amount, and this is I'll on all intents and purposes, I'll sit there and put out my extreme frustration right now is the Safe Streets for All program. Anybody heard about that before? Hopefully maybe heard about that. It was $1 billion available across the country. $600 million was for implementation grants. $400 million were to do road safety action plans, essentially, to have plans in place to be able to make our roads safer. So this is all focused in on making our streets safer. So $1 billion out there. We purposely moved up our road safety action plan to get approved early enough so we could apply for this. Grant was due in September. In the last couple of weeks, they announced grant awards. We put in a grant request for $30 million. We got $500,000. So there was definitely some political things at play or whatever. We haven't gotten a debrief yet from Department of Transportation. We're working on that, but this is one of those things that I thought for sure we were going to get money from. So it's a little bit disappointing. They did this. So this will be an opportunity out there, even though we are disappointed, will be some federal opportunity to be able to do some study work on pedestrians and also speed study. It's focused on the U.S. limits, speed limits. Evaluation. So those will be things that will be coming out as well from the federal side. And we have been very, very active with the bipartisan infrastructure law, putting out funding applications for getting funded for the federal level. A couple other ones that will be coming up as well. We just found out about, we're finding out about this is some highway safety improvement program projects for some signal improvements at 43rd Avenue, Missouri, 43rd Avenue in Thunderbird, and then a traffic signal modernization at Jesse Owens Parkway and Baseline, 7th Street in McDowell, and then Cave Creek Road and Greenway Parkway. So those will be another ones opportunities that will be coming out as well. Some other design opportunities. So mentioned the road safety action plan that has $10 million attached to it. We'll be looking for opportunities. There's some things we're going to have to design in there: roadway intersection improvements, roadway corridor improvements. That has $10 million annual through that program that will be coming out. Then we're also waiting on the bipartisan infrastructure law. You know, we probably submitted, I think it was probably in May or June of last year, for a bridge grant to be able to do a bridge rehab replacement at 40th Street in Van Buren. It's where it crosses the Grand Canal. That one is a $13.5 million project. And so we're now hearing, I think we'll get grant award decision in April or May. It's been kind of sliding. A lot of things change at DC when they're talking about the grant award announcements. And this one you might have, something that Eric and I were very much involved in was the GEO bond program. And there'll be more coming about the GEO bond program than just streets. We have $500 million of bond program that was approved by the council to go to voters. It'll go to voters in November of 2023. So it's $500 million. Of that, $81.5 million is for streets and storm drain projects. These 6 projects here, the mobility improvements with equity and transportation, that's actually leveraging Transportation 2050 monies to do projects in mobility study areas that are basically neighborhoods that are needing connectivity to our major transportation and transit corridors. That's $12.5 million over that 5-year program allocated to that. I'm going to go to the Vision Zero. That 16.9 there is actually going to be added to the $10 million up there. So we'll have, this is just over 5 years. So you're looking at about another $3 to $4 million a year on top of the $10 million that will be used for road safety action plan implementation. Pavement maintenance supplement. This is really to increase our pavement maintenance, and I'll get to why that's necessary with perf and all that kind of stuff. This is actually focused in on residential streets. So we can do a number of quarter sections, residential streets there. And then what did I mean? Oh, storm drain replacement here. This is one that's setting the stage for some more work in the future. We need to do a major assessment of our storm drain system. In the city of Phoenix, specifically, a lot of corrugated metal piping was installed for our storm drain systems back in the 80s, early 90s. That stuff doesn't last very long. So we found a lot of our sinkholes and failures in our storm drain system are linked to this specific product that was used. And so we need to go through and figure out where our risks are as far as where the worst areas are. Where do we need to replace it? So our city manager has envisioned doing maybe a $500 million bond program every 5 years. We haven't done a bond program in the city of Phoenix since 2006. And I know Eric's going to do another presentation about the GEO bond program for you guys, I think, at a future meeting. But just on that one, so he envisions, so 2023, 2029, 2028, I can do my math, and then go forward. So I anticipate out of this assessment, we'll have real projects coming out of that for the next bond program. And then finally, these two right here, the Levine flood mitigation and the Hohokam drainage program, those 2 projects are ones we're partnering with the Flood Control District of Maricopa County, where we're going to be focusing on 2 areas out of master drainage plans that came out of Flood Control District. And those will all involve design work and projects, but most likely those will be managed by the Flood Control District. They're through designing through that, but we will be partnering with them if this gets approved by voters in November. So I talked a little bit about bipartisan infrastructure law. Just to let you know some of the things the city of Phoenix is doing. We meet bi-weekly with multiple departments, the city manager's office, to talk about what's new in the bipartisan infrastructure law, because as you probably know, we're a year and a half into that law, and not all the programs that were in that law have actually had notices of funding opportunities come out. So we're still waiting for the NOFOs for some of the programs to come out for the first year. So some things that are coming up that we know of, there's a Protect grant coming out, which is, I think, the healthy community ones. There's a few other ones that we're waiting on as well. They're supposed to be coming over the next couple of months. And then the next rounds, the second year NOFOs, will be coming out here in the spring and summer as well. So we've got a list of those. So we monitor and track those because we don't want to miss out on any opportunities. If you know anything about the Street Transportation Department, we get $0 in formula funds from this law. 0. So everything we get from this law, from the Street Transportation Department, we have to compete for. We have to put in grants for. So that's why sometimes with our CIP, we try to plan out what's going to come out in the future, but we don't necessarily know because we got to wait for these grant awards to tell us, oh, we got it. Now we got to program the funds to be able to make sure that we have the funding, local funding, to be able to match the federal funds. So that's something we continue to evaluate and monitor. This is our big win we had up here, was when we had Secretary Pete Buttigieg come out here with our congressional delegation as well to announce the RAISE grant. I was hoping for something similar with the Safe Streets for All grant, that we would have a little bit more than $25 million, but as I already mentioned, my frustration and disappointment about that. But this is something we're going to continually, because it's a 5-year law, we're going to continually be at the well trying to get money from the feds. doing our part. It's a little tiring. I'll tell you, my staff gets a little bit frustrated with me and tired with me. Like, hey, can we say no to one? I'm like, no, unfortunately, no. And we got a couple other ones out there. There's a smart one that's focused on traffic signal technology. We're waiting on a grant application announcement on that one as well. So it's kind of like, okay, which one are we waiting for now? There's so many of them going on right now. It takes a little bit of a matrix to figure out which one's coming up and which one we're waiting on. So nearing the end here, a little bit talking about, I want to talk a little bit about some of our challenges, and they're probably in these two areas. So you can figure funding and staffing. So you probably figured, yeah, sure, Keeney's going to talk about that. So HERF, I think just from the realism, we know what the political environment we're in right now. But from our standpoint, the HERF funding that's been impacted for us, I think there's two things that have been really impactful for us. One is Prop 207, recreational marijuana. We didn't know how much funding was going to come in for that based on the taxes on the recreational marijuana use. But it actually has been a lot more funding than we ever anticipated coming in for that, which doesn't really help my road safety efforts. I'm still, amazed when I'm sitting here driving by somebody who's just, token and blowing out the window. I'm like, really? It's so much has changed over the last, 4 or 5 years. But anyway, so that's been one actually positive aspect. The second one just kicked in is the census the 2020 census is actually shown that Phoenix has a lower proportion of the total state population than it did in the 2010 census. So our proportion of the HERF revenues coming back to us from the state are actually going to be going down. So that's something that's not happy for us. But as much as I do, like people are complaining about electric vehicle, usage and the registration fees. I guess I didn't realize this myself. I'm like, registration or the fees went up for electric vehicles, and I'm like realized, oh, that was just them paying what everybody else pays for registration fees. That wasn't them paying, the fair share of the use of the roadways, which I would just love to have that happen and put on the front burner. I know we can all talk about raising the 18 cents and going up to, a nickel, or even getting, or even just getting CPI increases to the 18 cents. None of that has happened yet. You all know that. It's a little bit frustrating for us because we're trying to do our best to juggle the funding we've got to take care of the roadways we've got. I want to be out there building more roadways and do more projects. But at the same time, I've got 5,000 miles of roadways to take care of. Those have to be the first and foremost of what we're doing, but also the safety improvements. I've got to focus in on safety. I'd love to be out there doing more things like the TSMC roadway projects. But just want to make sure the 3 miles of roadway projects we built for TSMC up there that we completed ahead of when they needed to be done. We did a fantastic job. Our team working with the industry did a fantastic job in delivering those projects, but $0 in my department was spent on those funds. That came from other funds. Those people had to kick those monies in. I didn't use any HERF monies for that. None of my own monies for that. So that's how, and there's other projects there's more demand for more TSMC projects to be able to support the development's going to happen as they announced their expansion plans. There's other projects that we've, been asked to do up in the Laveen area, the South Mountain area, up in the Desert Ridge area. I can't build those. I don't have the funding to do it. So they have to come from somewhere else. So it's a little bit of a sad state we're in the state. I mean, right now with the funding, but I'll get to my soapbox there. Talk a little bit here. We have about 760 positions in the street transportation department. Before the pandemic, March of 2020, we had about 94 vacancies. Still not where I wanted to be. I was trying to get down to about 10% vacancy rate. Then you fast forward to about January 2021. We didn't know what the revenues were going to be, so we kind of held off a little bit on hiring. We were about 140 vacancies about that time, so we'd gone up about 50 vacancies in 8-9 months. Now standing here today, February 2023, we have about 215 vacancies. You can do the math on that one. We're up over 25%. I have not heard any other department in the city who has a worse vacancy rate than we do. Not even police department has over 25% vacancy rate. Citywide, we're about 20%, maybe a little over 20% across the city. So this is my biggest, concern and issue, because I've told my staff, you guys are here doing this. You guys and gals are doing this every single day. You're covering for those 25% of our workforce that's not here. And that takes a toll on our staff. We've still got to deliver projects. Our council and the public still ask us to do that. So we've been very focused, and I think we're working with Candy and Eric's team to potentially put out a procurement out here for staff augmentation to help with managing projects. Because we need people. I lost probably 3 or 4 project managers, senior project managers in the last 6 months. Either through going to private sector, going to out of state to work somewhere else, a lot of different reasons going on, or promotions within the city. So I've lost a lot of expertise, and we need to be able to continue to deliver projects. So that's something I call out to I know that's not what you want to hear. You'd rather design projects for us and work on those kind of things. But at the same time, we have a need to be able to fill project management roles to be able to get this work done. So we are working with some firms on that, but we're going to have a greater need within what we have available with some of those firms. So we'll probably be putting out a specific recruitment about that. And then we also have some things like apprenticeship programs here for our street maintenance workers. We're working on one for our electricians as well, 2 of our hardest hit areas from the working crew, field crewed areas on filling positions. And so kind of that's where we're at right now, a little bit of the state of the streets. I turn this off. I don't know if oh, there we go. So that's the end of that. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Great presentation, Daniel. Appreciate it. Looks like we've already got some questions, so
on the cool streets, I think it was about 12 degrees you guys are finding. Have you found that decreases over the years? I know some have been out there about 2 years now, 2.5 years. Like went back and started testing and the pavement, pavement temperatures underneath. I know you did right when you first put it in, but have you continued monitoring?
One thing we did is when we were working with Arizona State University, we had our initial study and report that we wanted to see, okay, is this working? I mean, does it have the effect that we thought it was? And they came back and gave us a report. So we doubled down on that. So we're actually working with ASU. They're continuing that study and research to look at a couple things. In particular, one exactly, does this still have a continued effect? What over time, does it diminish? Does it get worse? I mean, does it stay the same? But also the other part is, we asked them to do is look at with that air temperature difference, and it may take a while to get this to happen. Do we see electricity utility bills in the neighborhoods where we're putting this go down actually? Because you think a half degree is not much, but a half degree may be something that's causes them to set their AC or their swamp coolers, to a different temperature or a different setting, or they don't run it as often. And so that's the 2 things we're looking at in addition. So that yes, we don't have the results back on that, but that's something we are going to be getting and reporting back.
any other questions?
Jumping over to the traffic signal safety, I think about a month ago on the news, they indicated City of Phoenix had a pilot program, I think, to study the red light fatalities. Can you comment on that?
Okay. Do I have another half an hour to talk about this? So thank you for that. That's I should have actually probably included that one. I didn't know if you guys wanted to do a more of ITE focused presentation, but yes, we've had a little bit of political pressure generated because if you're familiar with the ITE guidelines in 2020, there was a lot of some outside influence and pressure that kind of went that way to be able to influence how ITE recommended the guidelines out there for traffic signal timing. Some of those were pushed forward by people who are not engineers. And at least one of those people relocated here back to the Valley. I think they're up in the Northwest area. So we've got a couple folks here who are very, very interested in that and have got the ears of a couple council members. So I have to do a lot of work behind the scenes to talk with our council members to get them to understand the differences here. Essentially what happened with the 2020 ITE guidelines, it said we use speed limit. We've always used speed limit as being how we control and time our yellow lights and our all red clearance. The ITE guidelines in 2020 said, use the 85th percentile, which has always been there, but the 85th percentile, can you imagine trying to do an 85th percentile speed study on every one of your intersections? We have 1,200 signalized intersections in the city of Phoenix. That wasn't going to happen. That's not realistic. Nobody across the country can do that. So in lieu of that, you could use the speed limit plus 7 miles per hour. So essentially what you're doing is you're assuming everybody's going over the speed limit, which we know they are, but there's also the element of enforcement. And so I don't want to lose on that. I have to always tell the council and the public is like, if there was a better enforcement culture of the speed limit here in the city of Phoenix, which we all know the struggles the police department have had, with staffing and other things going on, that doesn't exist here. I mean, I witnessed it on the freeway coming down here today or in the streets. You see it every single day, what people are doing, and whether it's red lights, running red lights or this. So this whole idea was, the city of Phoenix should adopt the speed limit plus 7 miles per hour. Right now, it should do it. And the reason is because we need longer yellow lights because we have too many red light runners, and that's what's going to solve this whole thing. So what I said is that we need to take a step back here a little bit. I know we're going to get pressure. We got to look at this. So we ended up doing a study working with University of Arizona to do this study. And what they are doing is we have 12 signals across the city that we selected based on red light running crashes and fatalities, looking at the top 100 crash risk intersections that MAG puts out. So we selected 12, and that we also want to make sure they're feasibly, we can install the equipment and technology we needed to at those intersections to be able to do this. So we have 12 locations where we have these MyoVision cameras out there that they can detect what's going on at the intersection, see red light running, who's going through at certain times. And so we've put those in different categories. We have a control group. We have 9 other locations, 3 that are in a control group, 9 that are in a group that we're changing our timing based on the guidelines in different ways. We're doing one that's incremental, one where we're switching it and going back and forth every 2 weeks, and then one where we just implemented them outright. And so we're evaluating those 9. We finished up collection of our initial 12-week study in February 13th. And so now UVA is looking at going through all the data, quality controlling it. And the whole idea there is with the speed limit plus 7 miles per hour, it adds probably anywhere from 1/10 to up to 0.6 of a second to the yellow light. One of the other things, because you do this, is if you're using a higher speed going through the intersection, our all red clearance will actually decrease, because you have less time, you need to clear that. So that's one of the concerns we have as well. So we want to do a study to determine whether this is actually making our streets safer or not. Our initial data for the first couple of weeks for the one location that went straight to the 2020 IT guidelines did show a reduction about half of the red light running that it was before. But we don't know whether that's just somebody they haven't gotten used to it yet. So we want to kind of see over that 12-week period, what behavior changes do we see with the people out on the roadway. And so we anticipate we'll come back to council probably in May with the results of the study, of that 12-week study, and kind of be in a position maybe to do recommendations. There's if you know anything about, there's also extended left turn kinematic equation with that as well. That's a little more controversial. Nobody's really adopted that one, because you're talking about taking yellow light timing to like 6 to 7 seconds beyond what the manual of uniform traffic control devices tells you should do. So a lot of things going on in that, but thanks for the question. I mean, that's something we're doing. And what I kind of pointed out to our council was no other city, nobody other agent we know of has done a study like what we're doing right now across the country. And there's actually a pooled study that FHWA is doing, but they haven't really started it. We are participating in it, but it really hasn't got going yet. So it'll take a number of years for that to come out. We're going to hopefully have our study results here shortly.
Okay, I think Steve's question.
Your $500,000 SS4A grant, is that for action plan only, or can you use it for implementation?
So funny thing, we asked for $30 million, and that $29.5 million was for implementation. We had 18 roadway corridors and segments that we were going to focus on to be able to do safety improvements. The $500,000 we had in that grant request was for further study. So yeah, so they actually came back and asked us a week before they did the announcement, saying, if you had a partial award, would you still do this $500,000 thing if we gave it to you? I'm like, sure, but we really need the $29.5 million. And I was thinking we get like $10-15 million plus the $500,000, but we got $500,000. Yeah. So yeah, just for studies.
Thank you. We have a question from online.
Yeah.
Is there a map for the digital kiosk locations?
We do have an internal map. I will tell you, some of them are changing because the vendor would like to put them in certain locations because they want to have high pedestrian, high traffic locations. But if you know anything about the downtown area, there are utilities all over the place downtown and clearances that we have to maintain because of ADA. So their locations of the 20s have changed. Yeah, like I said, I have a number of them, like, you know, but I don't know how firm that those locations are at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Kenny, thanks for the explanation on the cool pavement. It's tough to get some of that stuff through the paper and stuff, but that was great to be able to disseminate out to even some of the folks I know. On the IIGA work, and let me get my notes here. Is the city doing anything for like getting for the bipartisan infrastructure law? Has the city thought of bringing in like a consultant to help with any of the grant writing on that, or are you guys already doing that?
We are already doing that. So there are a few grants that we've written on our own, but most of them are ones we're using a consultant to help us with that. And there is six consultants we have actually did through a selection process. I think we did that probably like a year ago, maybe. Been that long? Yeah. So, oh, sorry. We did because we know street transportation, we're pretty good at managing the grant writing process, but there's a lot of, and aviation is as well. There's a lot of other departments that are impacted by the bipartisan infrastructure law who don't have that experience. So there's 6 firms we got, we selected to be able to help write some of those grants as those NOFOs came out, and we'd have them on call, ready, available to do that.
Yes, I heard the city of Denver's doing it. I want to make sure we're keep pace.
Yeah. Yeah, we trust me, if I sat there and told my staff, guess what, you got to write these grants. I mean, here's the cost benefit analysis you got to do for the raise grant. Have fun with that. I mean, they'd be still working on it. Or they'd be or they would have hung me already.
Any other questions? So I'd like to
Yeah.
just, Kenny, I was able to attend most of the Go Bond Committee meetings and watch the council meeting. And I just want to say your leadership on Vision Zero is very and very appreciated by myself, and I think the community as well. It's something, it's a goal that's incredibly important. I know to you, and the passion that you showed in those presentations and speeches was phenomenal, and I really appreciate. So I just wanted to give you kudos and say how much we appreciate, you know, that aspect of what we do, and you know, our canons are for public safety first, and you doing that and having that presentation and speech was very moving, and so I really appreciate that.
One thing I'll just build on, just so everybody understands, because who may not have heard that, there's a big push with the equity, making sure we're doing investments in infrastructure that serve underserved populations, places where for decades they haven't had the same investment, the level of investment. The wonderful thing about the Road Safety Action Plan and doing Vision Zero is you're using data. And what we found is when you sat there and used data to look where you have serious injuries and fatalities, and then you map that, and then you put over some of the overlays that they have for underserved areas, they align. So it becomes a no-brainer to sit there and have this conversation. Where do you do your investments for road safety? Well, they happen to be in the places where they have the greatest need, but they're also in those communities who have been underserved. And so maybe that's what contributed to these serious injuries and fatalities happening in those locations. So for me, that's where when I saw those numbers align, I'm like, this is a story that we need to make sure people don't forget this. This is going to have equity components, going to have road safety components. We're going to save people's lives out here by doing this work.
Very well, yeah, it's very much appreciated, and just good. So the future families that get affected by the work we're doing today, you know, we can't bring people back, but we hope we save the future. So really appreciate that, Kenny. Before we get out of here, are there any announcements, Scott? I know you want to give a board a technical registration update.
Terry, you're it.
I'm off today. So this is just from the NDES front. Okay, sorry, get this. So these are 2 lanyards. NCS is working to try to get folks to take the FE exam and get a little bit, you know, kickstart on the licensing process. So one of these is if you pass it when you're undergrad, and one when you're in grad school. So something else to add flair on when you're walking across the podium out there in front of everybody saying, look, I got an extra lanyard than you guys do. So these are, they're in the works. There's going to be more information. I'm going to a Western Zone conference in April. And so after that, I should come back with some more information on really where the students can go and sign up for these things online and things like that. So that's exciting. So that's all I got on that.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your volunteering on the board.
Thanks, Scott.
Go ahead. Do you have an announcement, Justin? Anything from?
I do, just very, very quickly. Oh, I'm sorry, Eric, why don't you go first? I'll close out. No, mine's different. Go ahead.
So nobody applauded for Kenny, so thank you, Kenny. Yeah, no,
I was gonna go cry myself to sleep.
yeah, right. Okay, so now you don't have to do that. So I will have Candy come up here in a second to give the other updates. I know Kenny had some opportunities up there from the street side, but we have other departments, of course, that some of you are interested in. But I want to thank all of you for coming. It's great to see the in-person turnout has been increasing every month. It does help when you have Kenny coming and talking as one of the bigger departments. That's great. A few things that we're working on. This is more just informational for you. We're going to be adding some contract language, mostly onto the construction side in relation to ADA compliance, making sure that I know, and we've already talked a little bit about how I'm changing where now the designers are actually having to design them instead of just referencing a detail, but we're also now going to keep the contractors engaged if they construct it incorrectly, even if we determine it later that they'll have to come back. So we have that one, and then archaeological monitoring. Maybe this is more for your CA&I side of the house. It's just it's trying to strengthen the cooperation between the designer, the city, and the contractor when it comes to archaeological monitoring and those types of things. So, and Kenny did talk about staff augmentation. He also talked about vacancies. So we're primarily looking for just you coming to work for the city, but I know this isn't the place to say that. But if your firms have the availability to do some staff augmentation, that will be coming out specifically for the street transportation department. So that's the one related to streets. So we'll have Candy come up here and give you the updates on the others. It's a pretty lengthy list. So Marigo and Justin, I'll make sure I email it to you guys so you guys can have it somewhere. All the way up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Candy Kowalski, Design and Construction Procurement. Before I read off the list, I do want to take a moment to introduce our new team lead, Kevin Query. He will be overseeing all of the water services procurements that our group does. So you'll probably be working with him at some point in our team, certainly. So the majority of the projects that I have, pretty much really all the projects that I have right now that are in our queue and they're going to be coming out in the near future are all water services. So hopefully that's an opportunity for pretty much everybody in the room here today. So the first one is the Val Vista Water Treatment Plant Rehabilitation 2023. Then we have the Water System Power Redundancy Phase 2, Transmission Main Inspection and Assessment Program, the Cave Creek Rehabilitation CA&I only for that one, the 2022 99th Avenue Interceptor Rehab, the light rail. So you guys probably heard about this one last month, the light rail capital and I-10 extension design review and construction inspection oversight. That'll be coming out next week. And this week on Thursday, we have the CIPP line concrete sewer condition assessment. We talked about the staff augmentation that'll also be coming out here real soon. And then I just want to mention as an FYI, it'll be in our newsletter starting this week through the next couple of weeks. The aviation department is going to do their annual business summit that they do. So it is going to be online again this year and hopefully next year in person. But so you'll see that information in our newsletter. Thank you.
Justin?
Okay, so just very, very quickly, I wanted to share some news that I think everyone in this room might be somewhat interested in. And perhaps even Steve Jimenez too, as our, I just scared him, as the chair of our ADOT liaison. But I did want to share with you that Jennifer Toth's hearing by the Senate Committee on Director Nominations was yesterday. Thankfully, it went far better than it did for the Department of Administration nominee. I am very happy to report that Jennifer received a 6-0 pass to go for vote to the full Senate. for confirmation. So that's excellent news for Jennifer. I know many of you are very close with her and we're very excited to see a great person moving into that role. So I apologize for bringing that up during a City of Phoenix meeting, but this did just happen yesterday. So I did want to make sure that this was shared in a timely manner. So with do you pass basically by a vote of 6-0? Good things to come, I believe, when she is voted upon by the full Senate body. The other thing that I very quickly wanted to mention is that there is a new striker on a Prop 400E bill. This was just dropped on Friday. The bill is House Bill 2031 by Representative Cook. So please take a look at that if you feel so inclined. At this time, this is the only bill that is alive and a vehicle for Prop 400E to move through the legislature this session. So it is not perfect. I will be the first one to admit that. We still have some challenges as it continues to exclude light rail funding. However, it does restore the original buckets of money to 50, 30, 20. So please take a look at that. The good thing about this, even though it is not perfect, is that it is open for amendment. So this is something that, while I'm sure you will hear a lot of opposition about this bill, and I understand why, we do need to keep an open mind so that we can continue to work with Representative Cook to get the amendments that we need to get a good bill over the finish line this year. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that with you as just a legislative update. Again, I apologize for sharing that at a City of Phoenix meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that I was being timely with this information. If you have any questions for me about any of that, please be sure to let me know, and I would gladly give you any updates, answer any questions that I can, or assist you with signing in any of those fun things have to do with legislature. So thank you for indulging me. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate that update. And so with that, that's it for today. Upcoming events. We have Thursday. Please come out to the City of Mesa. And Mark Alstrom will be giving a presentation as well as Lance Webb. And then next month, City of Phoenix liaison, March 21st, will be parks. So come out and listen to the parks. It's a great time of year to go to the parks. So come out and listen to their projects and then head on out to their parks. So, and then the following Thursday after that will be Queen Creek. So into March 23rd, Queen Creek, come out to Queen Creek. They just broke the top 10 of CIP. So we'll be interesting to see what they say. All right, so with that, let's give Kenny another hand because he is going to get it. And we will see you on Thursday and then next month as well. So thank you everyone for coming out.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.